The problem was never you. The problem was the solution. Here's what I know about midlife. It's a little bit of a reckoning. It's not a crisis, it's a reckoning. And in the world of AI now, you can find 12 really good answers to any question you might have. But here's the truth. Those solutions are and will forever be just information. Isolation is one of the most corrosive forces in the lives of midlife women. Not because we're alone, most of us are actually surrounded by people, but because we feel unknown. The thing about connection is that it's not this soft, feel-good add-on to real coaching. Connection is the foundation of what real coaching looks like. So before we get into today's conversation, I want to ask you something. How many times have you downloaded the freebie? Or how many times have you bought the planner? Or the course, or the challenge, or the 5-day reset, the habit tracker, the color-coded system that promised to change everything? How many times have you started fresh on a Monday, full of hope and energy, fully committed, ready to do the thing? And by Thursday, everything has fallen apart again. And what do you do with that? What happens next is you probably blame yourself. You think, something's wrong with me. Other women can do this. I just can't stick to anything. That's the story we get trapped in, right? But here's what I want to say to you today, and I want you to hear this. The problem was never you. The problem was the solution. And so today we're going there. We're talking about why surface level solutions don't work for midlife women, why they've never worked, why they were never destined to work for us, and what does work, because I've seen it, I've lived it, and I've watched it transform the women's lives who I work with every single day when they finally stop chasing the quick fixes and they lean into something real. And so let's go. So today I want to start with a question. When did self-improvement become a vending machine? Put in your credit card, select your problem, get a solution, check mark, done. Struggling with clutter? Here's a 10-day declutter challenge. Can't manage your time? Here's a time blocking course. Overwhelmed? Here's a 5-minute magical morning routine. Everything has been distilled down to neat, tidy, marketable packages. And I get it. These things sell because they're easy to promise and they're easy to buy. And they feel like action. They feel like progress. But here's the truth. A course doesn't know what season of life you're in. A planner doesn't know that you've been grieving something for 3 years and you haven't told anyone. A 5-day reset doesn't know that the reason you can't get out of bed in the morning has nothing to do with your alarm, and it has everything to do with the fact that you feel completely invisible inside your own life. Surface level solutions treat symptoms, and midlife women are done dealing with surface level solutions. And you know what? It's because we aren't dealing with surface level problems. We're dealing with the accumulation of decades of putting everyone else first, decades of shrinking to fit into rooms that weren't built for us, decades of telling ourselves, I'll deal with that later, decades of silence, decades of doing it all, appearing capable and quietly falling apart on the inside. That's not a planner problem. That's not a productivity problem. That is a go deep or go home problem. And the wellness industry and the coaching industry, a lot of it is still selling us planners. But let me tell you what I see from where I sit inside the lives of women every day. I see women in their 40s and 50s who have mastered the art of appearing fine. They have it all together. You've probably been doing that very thing since you were a teenager. You learned early that you were the responsible one, the capable one, the one who doesn't complain. And then midlife hits, and everything that used to work doesn't. The coping strategies that got you through your 30s, the nightly glass of wine, the scrolling, the staying busy so that you don't have to feel anything. Those things stopped working in midlife, or they started costing you way too much. The roles that used to define you, they start to shift. Your kids, they need you differently, or they don't seem to need you at all. Your marriage might feel like you're living with a roommate. Your career might feel hollow. Your body is changing. Your hormones are changing. And you're standing in the middle of it all going, I don't even recognize my own life. Here's what I know about midlife. It's a little bit of a reckoning. It's not a crisis. It's a reckoning. It's the season where all of the things that you have been carrying, they start to demand an honest look. The grief that you didn't process, the boundaries you never set, the version of yourself that you abandoned somewhere around the time that you became everything to everyone. That's not a declutter challenge situation. That requires something different, something deeper. And here's what nobody told us. We were never meant to do all of this alone. We were never meant to just white knuckle our way through the hardest season of life with nothing but a printable PDF and a motivational quote. We need connection. We need real conversations. We need people who see us, who actually see us and say, hey, me too. And sometimes we need someone to see what we can't see, and even to call us out on things when we're too stubborn to see what needs to be done in order to change. And change? We say we want it, but do we really? So I have a confession. I've created courses. I've sold courses. I believe in education. I believe in structure and strategy and having a roadmap. But I've also watched women buy a course, skim through the first module, close the laptop, and never go back. And I used to wonder, what are they doing? What's wrong with them? The answers that they're looking for, they're right there. But now I actually know the answer to that question. Nothing is wrong with them. What's wrong is the container. Because a course assumes that you have the mental and emotional bandwidth to consume content and then to implement it and to troubleshoot it when it doesn't work, to stay consistent in it and with it when life gets loud, and to keep going when you hit resistance, all by yourself in isolation at your own pace. Figure it out. Well, that's a lot of assumptions. And for midlife women who are already at capacity, already at or running close to running on empty, a course is often just one more thing to feel behind on, one more thing to fail at, one more piece of evidence that you just can't get it together and things will never get better. I've had women tell me that buying courses and not finishing them is one of the primary ways that they shame themselves. They look at all the icons in their browser, the courses they paid for and never completed, and they feel like failures. I hear it all the time. That shame, it does not come from lack of discipline. They didn't not finish those courses or even open them due to a lack of discipline. All of this comes from the lie that says that the information alone should be enough to create change, but that's not true. Here's what actually creates change. It's things like community and accountability, time, ongoing support, the ability to say, hey, this isn't working for me. What can I try instead? And have someone actually answer you, someone who knows your situation, not look for things in a search bar. And in the world of AI now, you can find 12 really good answers to any question you might have. But here's the truth. Those solutions are and will forever be just information. Two-dimensional information. And information is a starting point. It is not living, breathing, transformation, and strategy. And for midlife women, transformation, it requires so much more than information. It requires a D approach. And the D stands for depth. It requires someone to hold space for you while you figure out what's actually underneath the problem. It requires people around you who are in the thick of it too, so that you can finally stop thinking you're the only one who can't keep up. It requires an honest look at what's working and what's not, and then a plan for what to do about it. These things are not going to be found in a course. These things are going to be found in a human, in connection, in a relationship, in a living, breathing, ongoing journey. Because guess what? Life is ongoing. Just as soon as you figure something out, there's something new to figure out, deal with, process through, carry, or grieve. And so let me tell you what it actually costs to keep living on the surface, the cost of living a 2D life, because we don't talk about this enough. When you keep outsourcing your growth to quick fixes that stay on the surface, you stay in a loop. You reset, you try, you fail. You reset, you try again, you fail again. And every time that loop completes, your confidence that anything will ever get better takes a hit. Every time you don't follow through or something doesn't work, you add another brick to the wall of evidence that you are building against yourself and against your life and what is possible in it. You say things like, see, I can't stick to anything. See, I'm not disciplined enough. See, I'm just too broken for this. See, my life is just too big of a mess for this. That doesn't work. And here's the cruel irony. The more surface level the solution is, the more likely it is to fail, which means the more likely you are to blame yourself, which means the more shame you carry, which makes the next attempt harder, which makes failure more likely again. And hopelessness, that creeps in. And it's this spiral and surface level solutions that keep you in it. But that's not actually the only cost. There's also the cost of disconnection. Well, hey friend, if you are tired of programs, if the idea of keeping up with another class makes you want to opt out completely, I want to tell you about something different. The Connection Circle for Women is not another class. It's not another commitment on your calendar, and it's definitely not a place where you have to show up on time or prepared or where you have to do it right. The Connection Circle for Women is a 90-day space for support, encouragement, and real conversation. I show up there weekly, but not with a curriculum. Sometimes it's a live check-in. Sometimes it's a conversation thread that goes on and on among the women there. Sometimes it's a short story from my own messy, real life, and it's also a safe place for you to share what you've got going on, or what you need support in. There's no pressure to attend anything live or show up on any sort of daily schedule. There's no falling behind, there's no homework. It's come as you are, when you can, however you need. This is about conversation, not lectures. It's about presence, not performance. It's about connection, not fixing. And so if you're craving a space where you can just be honest, be supported, and not carry everything alone anymore, you can learn more at theconnectioncircleforwomen.com. It's not about being taught. It's about having conversations and feeling seen and heard and understood for what might be the first time in a very long time. I'd love to see you there. When we are drowning rather than living in survival mode, because let's face it, sometimes life circumstances, they only leave room for surviving. Sometimes we have to live in survival mode, but there's a difference between fighting against survival mode, trying to keep your head above water, and learning to stop fighting the current and swim with it. But when we stop reaching for real connection, when we reach for pretend wellness on social media, we end up doing things like saying I'm fine when we're not. We keep the hard stuff to ourselves because we're afraid of what people will think, or worse, afraid that saying our struggles out loud, that makes us have to own them in a D way. And so in reality, we welcome isolation into our lives because then we don't have to be vulnerable. And this is drowning midlife women. Isolation, this is where we're at. Isolation is one of the most corrosive forces in the lives of midlife women. Not because we're alone, most of us are actually surrounded by people, but because we feel unknown. We feel like nobody really sees the whole picture. Nobody really knows where we are. Nobody really knows how bad this season actually is and how hard it is for us. And that isolation, it then feeds the shame, and the shame feeds that isolation, and then both of them come together, and they make everything harder than it needs to be. And here's the other thing that living on the surface, it costs us. It costs us time. I have watched women spend 5 years or more trying these surface level solutions, one after the other, planners, challenges, hacks, apps. 5 years of spinning, 5 years of resetting, 5 years of trying again, and 5 years of being stuck in this loop that was never going to get them where they wanted to go. 5 years. And what would those 5 years have looked like with the right support, with the right connection, with the right relationship, with someone helping them diagnose the actual problem instead of treating the symptom and then treating the next symptom and symptom after symptom? That's not a small thing. Time. This is your life, and it's going by while you're waiting for the right planner to throw you a safety net and save you. If there's one thing that I have learned as I'm now starting my 6th decade, which is crazy, but it's that we don't get any of those years back, and somehow they accelerate even faster and faster. Here's another thing I've learned. Midlife women, we are done with the surface. We are done. We've lived life enough to know when something is working and when it's just noise. but it requires honesty. We've been sold all of these surface level solutions and we've tried them. And somewhere in our gut, we're now to the point where we know this isn't it anymore. And we know we actually need something else, but we can't quite put our finger on it. So what is it that we actually crave? We crave to be known, not managed, not handled, not given a checklist, but known. We want someone, anyone to look at the whole picture of our lives, the chaos, the contradictions, the ways that we're showing up brilliantly, and the ways that we're struggling, and not flinch. We want to be seen in our complexity and still feel like there's hope. We want to know that when we say, yeah, but you don't know my life, there's actually someone to give a little bit of pushback and say, yeah, that might be true, but you know what? You're not unfixable. This is not impossible. There is hope. And how does that happen? How can someone say these things to us? How can we stop feeling so painfully alone? The answer is it has to start with a conversation. We crave real conversation, not the kind where everyone pretends and puts forth their best version. The kind where someone says, oh my gosh, I felt that exact same thing last week, and suddenly you're not alone anymore. The kind where you can say the thing that you've been afraid to say out loud, and when you say it, the room doesn't implode. The kind where one woman says, I'm really not sure if I can be married anymore. My marriage feels like it is beyond hope, or something to that level of depth. And the woman that they're talking to, she gets this huge lump in her throat, and she can barely say the words, this is me too. We crave that kind of connection that goes both directions, not a coach on a stage talking at us, not a program that's so perfect and curated that it feels sterile. We need real, two-way, messy, honest connection with women who are in it with us. And we crave to be challenged, but with kindness. Most of us have spent years coddling ourselves with excuses, not because we're weak, but because we haven't had anyone around us who loves us enough to tell us the truth. Someone who can say, I hear you, and I also want to ask you something. If you're telling me that's what you want, why aren't you doing it? That's not someone being mean to us. That's actually someone who cares about us. That's the kind of relationship that actually moves you forward. We crave these kinds of solutions, real solutions, not hacks, not tips, not trendy frameworks that sound great in a podcast, but crumble the second that real life hits. We want someone to sit in the mess with us and say, okay, what's actually going on here? Let's figure this out, not in theory, but in your actual life. And so let's talk about something that I think gets lost in this world of coaching and online programs. They're everywhere. I have them. But what I know to be true is that real change takes time and it requires visiting. I cannot count the number of times that I've worked through something with a client, made real progress, implemented a strategy, and then 3 months later, life shifts in some way, and we have to go back and revisit it and rebuild it. That doesn't mean that we built it wrong in the first place. That's just how change works. Life is not static. You are not static. Your season changes. Your capacity changes. Your family dynamics change. Your health changes. The pressures that are on you, they shift. A strategy that works beautifully in January might completely fall apart come April when your kids are now home from school and your husband's schedule changes and you're running on 4 hours of sleep every single day for 2 months. That doesn't mean that the strategy that you had was wrong. It means that the strategy needs to be revisited. Surface level solutions, they don't account for this. You buy the course, you get the system, and then you're on your own to figure out what to do when the system stops working in your particular life, in your particular season, with your particular set of complications that weren't there when you bought it. But here's what the deep work that needs to be done actually looks like. It's ongoing strategic revisiting of what's working and what's not. It's regular check-ins. It's honest assessment. It's the ability to say, you know what, this was working 3 months ago and now it's not. So now what? This doesn't mean weakness. It's more like a sophisticated ownership of your life. And you're the only one who can take ownership of your life, to care about your life enough to take that ownership and then get honest about it. The women who make lasting change in their lives are not the ones who found the perfect system and stuck with it forever. They're the ones who built this practice of assessment and reassessment and adjustment, who learn to look at their lives honestly without shame and ask, what do I need right now? Knowing that right now is forever changing. That requires depth. That requires relationships. That requires a community of women who are doing the same thing so that you can learn from each other's adjustments, not just your own. And I want to say something that might surprise you. For some women, the very first fix has nothing to do with a strategy, but it's all about that one thing that we've talked about so much here today: connection. For many women, the first thing that they need is connection, because here's what happens when isolation meets overwhelm. You start to believe that you are uniquely, specifically, catastrophically broken. You look at other women's lives, they're curated and filtered, presented for public consumption lives, and you think everyone else has it together. I'm the only one who can't keep up. I'm the only one falling apart. And that belief is suffocating women. And it's also a lie. But you can't argue yourself out of that lie alone. You can't think your way out of shame. You can't read your way out of isolation. The only thing that dissolves that lie is being in a room, whether virtual or physical, with other women who are being honest about their struggles so that you can see it. The moment that someone says, "Me too," something shifts for you. Shame needs secrecy to survive, but connection, it kills it. And when that shame lifts, even just a little, everything becomes more possible. The clarity that you couldn't find before, it starts to emerge. The next step that felt impossible, it starts to feel manageable. The thing about connection is that it's not this soft, feel-good add-on to real coaching. Connection is the foundation of what real coaching looks like. This is why I don't build courses anymore. I build experiences. I create connection more than I create anything else these days, because women in midlife need to be around other women in midlife, women who are honest, women who are doing the work, women who will say, "I hear you and I've been there, and here's what helped me." That changes everything. Well, hey, friend, if you are tired of programs, if the idea of keeping up with another class makes you want to opt out completely, I want to tell you about something different. The Connection Circle for Women is not another class. It's not another commitment on your calendar, and it's definitely not a place where you have to show up on time or prepared or where you have to do it right. The Connection Circle for Women is a 90-day space for support, encouragement, and real conversation. I show up there weekly, but not with a curriculum. Sometimes it's a live check-in. Sometimes it's a conversation thread that goes on and on among the women there. Sometimes it's a short story from my own messy, real life. And it's also a safe place for you to share what you've got going on, or what you need support in. There's no pressure to attend anything live or show up on any sort of daily schedule. There's no falling behind. There's no homework. It's come as you are, when you can, however you need. This is about conversation, not lectures. It's about presence, not performance. It's about connection, not fixing. And so if you're craving a space where you can just be honest, be supported, and not carry everything alone anymore, you can learn more at theconnectioncircleforwomen.com. It's not about being taught. It's about having conversations and feeling seen and heard and understood for what might be the first time in a very long time. I'd love to see you there. And so I want to get practical for a minute, because I know what happens when someone says community and someone says deep work. It starts to sound like this abstract concept. It doesn't sound like anything real. It doesn't sound like a real thing that you can step into on a Tuesday afternoon when you're exhausted and your kitchen is a disaster and you've been carrying something so heavy for 3 weeks and you haven't said it out loud to anyone, not even yourself. So let me tell you what this actually looks like. The Connection Circle for Women is where it starts for a lot of women. It's a brand new community that I started in the beginning of 2026. And I want to be clear about what it is, because it's probably not what you're expecting. It's not a class or a course. There is no curriculum. It is not something that you can fall behind on or feel overwhelmed by. It is literally just a 90-day space. It is a 90-day container where I show up sometimes multiple times in a given week in small ways. But you know what? I'm not teaching a lesson. I'm actually doing a lot less teaching than I do here with what you're listening to right now. I don't have a lesson plan, but I show up as myself. Sometimes it's a live check-in. Sometimes it's a voice note or a short video that I film out in the hallway at swim practice because that's the only time I have that day. Sometimes it's a question that I drop into the group and then the conversation starts to take off. Sometimes I share something from my own real messy life, a moment that didn't go the way that I had planned, or a week that really humbled me, and a truth that I had to sit with. And the women there, they're showing up in the same way. They're not pretending. They're not polished. They're not performing. They're just honest too. And there's no pressure to attend anything live because there's no schedule. There's nothing you have to plan your life around. You pop in when you can. You maybe catch something that I sent there. You drop in a comment. You respond to a thread. And every single time that you show up there to take something in or leave something for someone else, you're reminded that you are not alone in this. Other women are feeling exactly what you're feeling. Other women are navigating exactly what you're navigating. And we build a new community every 90 days. We start over. Most women will stay there from one 90-day segment to another. You can find out more at the Connection Circle for Women because you know what? The ConnectionCircleForWomen.com, because that's where the shame can start lifting. It can be the first step. It can be the breathing room for you. Everything can start to stabilize when isolation can lift. So this is the beginning of transformation. But you know what? Transformation does require depth, and it requires time. It requires accountability, which really is just a fancy word for someone who knows what you said and what you were going to do and asks you about it. It requires a community that can celebrate your progress and stand with you when life is messy. So here's the question I want to leave you with. Are you ready for something in your life to feel different? Are you ready for something to change? Because for you, that connection might just be the first step. So head to the ConnectionCircleForWomen.com and see what it's all about and join us there. Friend, you do not have to do this alone anymore. Until we talk again, make it a great day.